Good morning, Cyber Warriors. I'm going to go over a few things to make your script life a little bit easier to work with and understand. And that is through the operations of using menus to navigate through different portions of your script. Because by now, our script's getting pretty large. Let's get right to it. Look at this script. Look at it. 80 lines. Or at least we're down to 80. There's a lot of stuff in here. A lot of stuff that we've covered through the course of doing all of these different videos. Each of these different items I've either showed you explicitly how to do or gave you the path to figure out how to do it. To include this function, which I didn't walk you through, but I did talk to you about it. If you haven't created it on your own, you probably should. It's just borrowing the same sort of code, making some minor changes to adapt it specifically for that function. So in here we have 1, 2, 3, 4 different functions defined. And one of those is our invoked variables. And you see that I've added some additional variables that we create in other functions. So this script is getting really complex and it's getting harder to really manage and understand. So in order to do this, we have to start breaking the script down into different component areas, things that make a lot of sense, like user operations, doing stuff in the registry, making different changes or collecting information about passwords. We can make all those changes through the PowerShell command line and do all of that stuff. But we need to break it down in different components by creating a bunch of different menus. Menus is an easy way to navigate through multiple different operations or elements within the script. Some things you want it to just do automatically, collect certain bits of information, do a number of different things. But other things you want to actually do in an explicit manner. And an easy way to do a lot of that, and I keep using do a lot, but an easy way to get a lot of that stuff done is through a menu. And what we're going to do is we're going to create a menu, a function for a menu. And then I'll show you how to use the menu, which is entirely different than creating the function for it. So let's take a look at a function I call show menu. What this is doing is just defining the menu and how we're going to use our primary menu. We may have multiple menus buried down inside where we have this. It calls to that section or function of the script. You can invoke different things different ways, and we'll cover that a bit later. But what I want to do is show you the outline and function of how some of this will work. So we have function, once again, we're calling it this show menu. And we're going to create a parameters, which is a variable called the title. And I've defined it as a string. This is just really good practice for programming. And this is the menu title that we're going to have. Even though we have title here, we can take this bit of code and recycle it and repurpose it for different menus. Remember, this is basically just your menu framework that you're going to start from. Clear host, because we want to have a fresh screen. We don't want to have a lot of clutter. We have a quick little title line and title bar, and then we have a bunch of different actions to take. And these are actions that aren't actually going to be taken immediately. This is just presenting the information to the user. Okay. So what does this look like? Let's copy all of it and just dump it straight in. Okay, so I'm going to call in the command show menu. Remember, autocomplete is your friend. If you can't autocomplete it, it doesn't exist as a variable, as a function, as a command. Clean the screen. It wrote everything out, and then it dumped us straight back into our prompt because the menu itself is just the presentation to you and others as the user. This isn't an actual function until we define operations for this to happen. All this is doing is providing the framework for you to be able to identify what works, how, and why. So we have to companion this with the other piece, and I prefer for these a do until list, because I have, we want to keep coming back to the beginning here. We may call it a different portion, and then once we're done with that, we want to dump right back into this main menu. So there's just the main menu for the script. You press 1, it goes to the user operations. Press 2 is the password settings, which we haven't talked about yet, but we will get there. 3 is registry operations, to include just your default RDP ports and a few other things. And then Q to quit, right? So once we reach Q to quit, that is our Q, literally, in order to quit out of all the operations. So let's look at this paired up with other stuff. And this is a do until. So we're going to call our menu, right? So here's the line for the menu. And we're going to sit there and say, enter the selection. So this is the thing we want you to do. We have the information. Now, which option do you want to use? And we have a switch. And switch is a lovely bit of elegant code that allows us to take operations based off of input criteria. And what this means is, as the user tells it what to do as the selection, it's going to say, hey, based on your selection, what do I match against? If you said option number 1, it's going to dump you into the user operation stuff, whether it's collecting your good user, your bad user, your administrators, all of that information, just getting into that, allowing you to do a thing. All right. Password settings. Each of the different things allows you to do it. Where right here, I've got a quick little bit of verbiage for it, but the reality is you can actually put your invoke commands for the different functions and areas you want to work from. And then afterwards, we have a little pause statement. And this is, we continue to do all of these things that are above until we reach a Q. Once we hit a Q, then it all comes to an end. We're done. And actually, we'll just call this end loop. All right, so we're going to grab all of this. We're going to copy it really fast. And we're going to dump right back into here. All right, so previously we saw that it just dumped us into the command prompt again, waiting for us to do this. However, now we've defined our framework, and now we're going to be able to function within it. So if we want to do the registry operation stuff, we tell it 3 and enter, and it will, when you complete it, because this is right now just the shell and the framework, it'll actually bring up those registry operation pieces, like getting your run and run once, or creating your, asking you for your RDP port that you want to use. These are the different things that we can do. It's just setting up the framework to be able to do that. So once we have this, this is where the pause statement comes in. Remember, this statement here, press enter to continue, is the result of pause, because it's now waiting for you to actually do an operation. So it's enter, you hit enter, and it brings us right back to the beginning of the menu. And it'll continue to do that until, even if we have a blank, right? So once we tell it Q, it quits. All done. Brings us back to our prompt. There it is. Too easy, right? Should be too easy. Is everything ever really too easy? Okay, Cyber Warriors. What did we go over in this one? We talked about menus. One, creating a function to be able to present the menu to the operator, and then also how to create that into a do until loop to make sure that it continues to bring forward all of those things that you need to do, and how to use switch to have a conditionals based approach to executing your menu. What I didn't show you, I'm going to do now, is how and where to put these inside your scripts. So let's take a look really quickly. So here we are with our function for the show menu. We're going to go and copy all of that. We're going to push this. I like to have my menus right underneath all of my variables. So I'm going to push that right there. And you'd think that, well, now it's time for my do until loop, right? No. I'm going to skip all the way to the end. Almost all the way to the end. So now I'm going to add just above the invoke variables portion. I'm going to grab, it's not there, it's here. I'm going to grab all of this and put that down at the bottom. So all of your execution stuff that you do within the script is all the way down at the very bottom of the script. All of these loops that you want to go through and iterate, those will all happen at the very end. And that's just kind of part and parcel how all of that works. The wonderful thing is that you can continue to invoke those as needed. All right, so there you have it. It's a lot of stuff. It's a little bit tricky, and it's still a little complete. There's more that you have to do with this to make it actually function. But this is just, like I said, building the framework for you to be able to work from. So you can build your scripts, so you can work wonderfully within Cyber Patriot, whether the competitions or even if you're going to do some of these things in your day-to-day business work. Again, if you're going to do that in that operation field, make sure you have permission to do all the things you're doing. Don't just beg for forgiveness. Make sure that you are authorized to do the things you're doing. And as per always, I hope you learned something. Happy hunting, and I'll see you in the next video.